Okay, welcome everyone. Today is our continue reading Dao De Jing, and then let's say today is the last section for 2024, and we are going to take 2 weeks off, and the next time we will start from January 7th. Okay, so our format, we will read at least 2 translations from your favorite translation. Raise your hand, then you read, and then after that, Amang and I going to share our translation, and then we will come with some discussion, and please focus on the discussion on the chapter we read, and then we try to leave at least 20 minutes after the reading, and then to the final 20 minutes, so you can discuss some more general issue. So let's start from chapter 2. We have 2 hands, Kwang and David. Kwang, please.
Okay, so the translation by Professor Mose Roberts, stanza 12. The 5 colors bring blindness, the 5 tones, deafness, the 5 flavors, loss of savor, racing and hunting, loss of reason, and rare goods, shameless action. When wise men govern, this is why they favor the belly, not the eye. The one accept, the other deny.
Thank you, Kwang. David, you want to read your translation?
This is a new translation by Li and Wang.
You already bought the book?
No, published by Norton.
Okay, go
Yeah, it's brand new. 5 colors at the same time blind the eyes. 5 notes played at once deafen the ears. 5 flavors together numb the palate. Galloping and dancing to the hunt makes the heart crazy. Seeking hard to come by goods leads people to misdeeds. So the sage is content with a full stomach and ignores what dazzles the eye. Thus, he disregards all temptations and attains what he needs.
Thank you, David. Okay, I think that's interesting to put at the same time, and then we will talk about this. That's okay. So let me share the translation we have.
Chapter 12. For bellies. The 5 varieties of color blind one's eyes. The 5 varieties of sound deafen one's ears. The 5 varieties of flavor numb one's taste. The game of galloping and hunting frenzies one's mind. Rare goods hinder one's behavior. For this reason, the sage provides for people's bellies, not for their eyes, ears, taste, mind, and behavior. So they avoid the latter and take the former.
Thank you, Amam. So here I have a few things to I need to explain, and you probably already see the different way to translate or interpret. Okay, so here I'd like to talk about we decide to use 5 variety of color, 5 variety of sound, 5 variety of flavors. Okay, and then yes, traditionally Chinese will talk about 5 color, and you can list what's the 5 color. And they have the 5 tones for the music, 5 flavor, that's the common, probably universally. So you can say they have the 5 different color. But in another way to interpret is 5 is another way to represent many, okay, many color, many things. So you will, in a way, is many different color will blind your eye, many different sound will deafen your ears. Many different flavor actually will numb your taste. And the version David just read is also interesting. He talking about, the translator talking about, put the 5 color at the same time, put the 5 color in 5 tones at the same time, put 5 taste at the same time. Yes, that's wrong. And then the next one talk about the galloping and the hunting. That's the common aristocratic entertaining during that time. So here they start to the authors start to talking about that's the reason I decide to translate as 5 variety. Okay, 5 variety instead of 5 color at the same time, because here is talking about 5 different kind of entertaining, right? Your eye, something you see, something you hear, something you taste, something your spirit enjoy. Okay, hunting and riding on the horse, and the goods, the real goods. You can see that's the nobility can enjoy this thing. So the conclusion was said, the teaching is said, the sage provide the people belly, not for their eyes. Okay, so the Chinese translation is, Chinese words says 为腹不为目. Okay, for the belly, but not for eye. I think here, I put the printer's ear, taste, mind, and the behavior here. The reason is the author is not talking about just eyes. He's talking about all the previous thing, because all these one are not that important. The important is economics issue, not the entertaining, not the luxury, this issue. The important is food. Okay, think about the food. Okay, that's more important. In today's case would be forget about ideology. Okay, economic is more important. I think that's the issue. So they avoid the latter, which means the eye, ear, tasting, mind, and the behavior. And the more important is the formal, which is the bellies, the food, the economic issue. So same time you can see, I think this one you can see very similar to chapter 3 when we read this one, right? It talking about, okay, for this reason, the governance of sage is to empty people's mind but fill their bellies, right? So that's, you can connect with chapter 3, which talking about the mind is not that important. I think we also read chapter 8, I think it's chapter 8, right? Not chapter 8, I forget, probably chapter 10. Talk about 无知, no knowledge. Okay. Oh, I forget which one, probably chapter 9. Okay, let me find it later. Anyway, Aman, if you have something. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of things. One, the significance of 5. This is an allusion to the wu jing, or the 5 phases of transformations. And this is a comprehensive metaphysic of Taoism, the idea that these 5 different varieties are all that is. I got into the linguistics a little bit last week when I talked about Chinese as a language being pictographic and metaphoric. One of the things that's often not as well appreciated is even symbols that become to many people something that they hold as reified or independent. So something like yin yang, or the 5 phases, wood, fire, earth, metal, water. They start to see those as sort of an actual thing. This is actually a big bone I have to pick when people compare that to the Western mindset of the 4 elements, which was atomic theory. These were the elements, the elemental forces that were thought you put these 4 things together, you actually get everything. And there is physically, literally, earth, water, air, and fire in the composition of all things, but that element in itself. Yin yang is a metaphoric way of describing the behavior of qi in existence. The Tao doesn't need qi, but everything in existence that needs the Tao as a landscape for it relies on qi for its existence, and qi behaves in more yin or more yang ways. It's a metaphor for describing it being in ascension or descension. Making that metaphor more granular is to describe yang when it's a little yang, like wood, when it's a lot yang, like fire, when it's a little yin, like metal, when it's a lot yin, like water, when it's transitioning or returning from one phase to another. That is the axis, that is the earth. This is a metaphor that is meant to be comprehensive. So when we say the 5 varieties of color, that is all color. And the 5 varieties of sound is to indicate all sound. Same with taste. The message here is one of hedonistic adaptation and guard against it.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry. Could I ask you to mute? No, I got you. Yeah, the message here is a guard against hedonistic adaptation. I like my black shirt, but can I get a blacker one? Or I like my blue dress, but I'm really enamored of that new, cerulean blue that's out. You start to want more variety. You start to crave more novelty. And for that reason, you eventually become numb to all of what was originally of value to you or originally drew you to the thing. The game of galloping and hunting frenzies one mind. This was a noble pursuit. This was their recreation. This was as hedonistic a thing as could be done. And yeah, you worked up a good sweat and you got excited. Going and playing a game of racquetball might be the modern version of this for captains of industry. But at some point, you have diminishing returns. And for this reason, the sage knows those returns will always be diminishing, and therefore you shouldn't cater to them at every turn. You shouldn't try and provide people the latest iPhone or the newest XYZ exciting thing. You should be concerned for their bellies, that their needs are being met. I could go on about this, but I really think this is not as misinterpreted as or misinterpretable as it's often misinterpreted to be, which is just a renunciation of all things of value or of all worldly goods. It makes it much more Buddhistic when people try and interpret it that way.
Thank you, Imam. Okay, so one thing I would like to mention, I think last time or 2 times ago, a lot of people may mention about, is this a poem? Is this one is a poem and is that rhyming or something? My general answer is no. But this one, I kind of suspect the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 line could be a folk song or some singing, because I noticed they are rhyming. It's you read in Chinese, Mang, Lang, Shuang, Kuang, Fang, they all rhyme. So I believe, that's just my suspicion. Could be the author take some common singing as an example and then give some teaching on that. Because I find out the pronunciation for this 5 is really rhyming, which is unusual compared to other chapter. So we have 2 hands, but before that, let me answer. I read Darren give a very interesting question. Okay, he asked about, we translate as the 5 variety of flavor numb one's taste. I think that's all the translator or translate as numb. But the words means 爽. Okay, in today's world, this one means happy, beautiful, wonderful. Okay, I believe that's today's meaning. I'm answering Darren's question. So that's true. But in ancient time, this one also, it means clear, but clear means privation, deck off. So something like you miss the appointment, you will say 爽约, that means you miss the appointment. You use this one. So that means you miss something. Okay, that's another way to interpret. So I believe that's why this sentence translated as numb or lose the flavor or no flavor. I think that's same as so many color, you lose the sight. You don't see things. Okay, so I think that's the reason. So I answer to Darren a question. So Mark, we have Mark, Nick, and Kwang. Okay, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Jason, and thanks for your comments on the the rhyming aspect. I'm particularly interested in that. Amon, actually, I'm glad he introduced Wuxing because that's kind of like the starting point that I was gonna. So he introduced that, but I wanted, and the point that he makes about like the hedonism and the gluttony and stuff, that seems pretty clear to me, especially with the second half after the Wuxing, like the part about the belly, etc. But I'm wondering if there's not a deeper kind of philosophical connection between forbearance and dialectics here, a little bit similar to the recent chapter we did where we talked about the yo and the wu, as far as the wall and the window and the cup and the space. Because my understanding is, and I need some native speakers to correct me here because I could be very wrong about this. When you say like the 5 colors, like we have this saying in English, he went to the 4 corners of the earth. That doesn't literally mean he went to 4 spots. That means he went everywhere, right? And I think there's a similar thing in Chinese, except it's 5 because they have center, not just north, south, east, and west. So when they say the 5 colors, I'm wondering if instead of translating that as many, you could translate that as all, like all the flavors, all the colors, because the 5 are just representing like the expanse. They're representing the like the X and the Y axis, except you have 5, so it's representing the entire field of everything. So in that sense, I'm wondering if one could interpret this as if you have everything, you have nothing. Like you have to have a difference between something and nothing to have anything. So, and in a way that could be connected to this issue of hedonism and gluttony in the sense, in a philosophical sense, that you eliminate having something or you eliminate a thing by, like, you can't do everything, right? You have to focus. You have to put your attention somewhere. If you try to do everything, you can't do anything. So I'm wondering if that, so that's my sense, kind of translating my sense of dialectics that I've studied from European philosophy into like the Wuxing system and the relationship between these phrases, these 3 examples of Wuxing, to the yo and the wei that we talked about earlier. So I'm wondering, does that make sense to Chinese speakers or not? Or what do you guys think of that? That's it.
Okay, Mark, thank you very much for this one. Okay, so I think probably 2 years ago, and Amang and I discussed this one. I'm contemplating translate as all color, many color, or 5 color. Okay, so they all have their own problem. So I think and there's no perfect one. So finally, we decide use 5 because the Chinese word is 5 here. So we want to keep 5. But is that the best way? It's hard to say. Really depends how you read the text. And something for common, I try to avoid all because I use all for 10,000. Okay, so that's why I think all is not good. I don't use a few because if you remember in Confucius Analect reading, in Chinese word will say 2 or 3. That means a few. Okay, 二三 2 or 3 guys. So that means a few. You guys, this kind of concept. So the number is interesting. And I try not to be too more numerological thinking because a lot of perception is Chinese are very numerological, but which I don't think so. But since they put a number on that, so I put 5. Does it related to 5 elements? I don't know, but that's use your own interpretation since the text put 5 here. Okay, but that's the reason to do it. Okay, so I hope.
Yeah, I agree with it. I agree with the translation of 5. That makes sense to me. I understand that. I'm more asking about, like, since I know a little bit about Wuxing and the cultural context, I'm wondering if it has some of that meaning to the Chinese reader, at least at the time that it was written of all, like the way I was kind of describing it.
I would venture to say that somebody versed enough reading it would see 5 color, 5 sound, 5 flavor, and be able to make that extension or association pretty quickly. But it is worth remembering that this is a text that wasn't written for the layperson. It was written to educate an elite person, and therefore a certain degree of base knowledge or base understandings would probably already be in place.
Yeah, thank you. We go to Nick, Huang, Paul, and Darren. Okay, Nick, please.
Yeah, thanks. I have 2 comments. The first one is on this rhyming pattern.
Yeah.
As you can see, line number 4 and line number 5. Even if you don't read Chinese, you can see line number 4 is 1 space more than not line number 5, right?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's just picturally, you can see that.
Mhm.
So one of the quite established modern scholar point this out, and he think this the second character from the right on line number 4 is actually redundant. You know, if you take that away, the sentence still flows, and actually it flows better because it rhymes not only with line number 5, it actually all of the 5 lines rhymes in terms of the last 4 characters. So he pointed out. I thought that was interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
but
thank
my
you.
sister,
Wonderful information. Thank you. Yeah. Go ahead.
and the second point I want to make is on this character at the end of the 3rd line. This is Shuang, this one.
Mhm.
If you don't mind blowing this up so people can see it. Yeah, just blow it up. Yeah. So you
That's
can
the
see,
maximum I can blow. So
that's fine. I can see it very clearly on my screen. Even if you don't read Chinese, if you stare at this character, the last character on line number 3, you can see it's like a guy in the middle carries something under both arms. Yeah. So that was the original meaning of this character when they created this character in the ancient days. So it's a person carrying something under both arms. And what he or she carries is fire. Fire. Originally, it's fire. So the original meaning of this character means brightness. Just brightness. That's why, and it carries that meaning towards the modern day, the contemporary usage that, it just feels, all expressiveness, happiness. So it has that connotation. But another way of seeing this is that if the light shines through a gap on the wall, you can see the light. So if the guy carries 2 fires, you can see the fire, but it's somehow somewhat, obstructed, then you don't see it. So that's a secondary meaning of this character, meaning you could miss a little bit, then you don't see everything.
yeah, thank you, Nick. Yeah, so that's why I speak Chinese. 爽约 you mean you miss the appointment. Okay, so I think that's the reason. Kwang, please.
I would say that this text, once again, was a text study by the imperial aristocracy of the Han Dynasty, and before them, the aristocrats of the feudal order between, let's say, 700 BCE and 221 BCE. According to the historical context, there's something very special which happened around 700 BCE. The level of luxury of the aristocracy increased tremendously because at the time there was an economic expansion. It was around 700 BC too that, you know, the curved roofs that is so characteristic of Chinese architecture began to appear, and which is a strong improvement compared to what was available before, let's say. So those texts reflects a change in the habits and everyday life of the aristocracy. And I just want to, of course, before they went to huntings, before they had all kind of banquets, before they had a lot of women, those things did not change compared to 1000 BCE, for example. But the external manifestation of their glory truly changed from around 700 BCE. And it was around that time, for example, that there was the famous Changhua Tower, who was a building having more than 5 stories or 5 floors, which was quite exceptional for 27 centuries ago and was perceived as something absolutely extravagant. A little bit, I don't know. Let's take something glorious nowadays. The very high building at Abu Dhabi, for example, or at Dubai. Okay, so it was something very extravagant, and that kind of text reflects that change. And I just want to read a very short excerpt that Professor Moses Roberts indicates. There was a philosopher, Mozi, who was from peasant origin, and he was absolutely dejected by all those stuff. So he wrote, and I mention him because he was very special in that classical period. Okay, he was the only guy from the peasantry, and he wrote a lot of text against those aristocrats, against music, economizing on funerals, and against Confucianists, because the Confucianists were the speakers for the aristocracy. And there was another level which is a little bit less severe, and I read the 3 lines, not from Mozi. Those rulers who understand the techniques or the art of rule pursue the pleasure of the hunt without bringing ruin, pursues the pleasure of consumption without dissipation. And I read to you another text from the Guanzi, and the Guanzi has been written around 650 BCE. And Guanzi was an aristocrat, and he was the prime minister of the Duke of Qi, Duke Huan of Qi. And you will see that his aristocratic origin explain a little bit what he wrote, because he would be the less severe of the 3, but still warning his fellow aristocrats not to waste the resources of the state. So I start the quotation. The enlightened king refuses a beautiful palace or declines to listen to concerts of bells and drums, not because the enjoyment is meager or because he detests music, but rather because these things ruin his administration and injure agriculture, the basic occupation. I stop here.
Thank you, Kwang. Okay. Paul, please.
Yeah, just a comment. I'd be interested in comments on another angle of this combining of the 5. It might be referenced in your note there below, Jason, but that there's the pure luxury extravagance that we're talking about that is sort of being pushed back on here, but there's this other, I guess I'd call it an aesthetic, that when you combine these five things, for instance, in food, it's actually the most healthy. If you have all the flavors, it's the most beneficial from a non-extravagant point of view. If you have all the colors on your plate, so there's another aesthetic that I don't know if it's ignored, or I'm applying something that they wouldn't have thought of, or if the guy's saying, hey, just give them straight rice, it's fine. You get the point, you get the nature of my question?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so that's then you can change your position to think, right? If you have the all you have the cuisine every day, then you don't. If you do it every day, okay, you have the best music every day, you probably don't enjoy it that much. Okay, that's another way to look at. So this one they provide it. That's I read this one in this way. That's why another reason I'm thinking about this. Why I'm thinking about the first 5 stanza represent the folk song, because they could be the common people, not aristocrats. Okay, the common people, they are poor, so they are jealous. Let's put it this way. Okay, they are not happy to see that. So they make this kind of song. So the author, let's say assume it's Laozi, take this one as a teaching to the young prince. Say, that's the way you all heard, right? And what does that mean? That means you, okay, should focus on economic issue, which is belly, not the entertaining issue. Okay, your eye, your ear, your mind, your behavior. I think that's what it meant. Okay, so okay, of course we all read this text 23, 2500 years later. There's many ways to interpret. Thank you, Paul, for the wonderful question or comment. Darren, please.
Hey everyone. So I'm still stuck on this word,
Okay,
song.
Shuang.
Swang. Okay, swang in Mandarin, it's song in Cantonese.
Yeah,
And
song.
I'm one, yeah, so it's quite similar in both Cantonese and Mandarin, song.
And also
And
Hakka and
oh yeah.
Hokkien. Okay, that's a very common words. Okay.
Yeah, it's actually a very popular word in Cantonese because people use it as a slang to mean like great or refreshing or something like that.
Yes.
So it was very weird for me to see it translated in this context as numb because it's totally opposite how everyone always uses it in Cantonese.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm still wondering about this. And so I'm curious if it might be intentionally ambiguous. So I'm just doing some very like cursory research at the moment into this word and the character and where it comes from. And it seems like it is always meant like clear and bright, you know, as I think someone earlier said, originally pictographically it depicts fire, like person holding fire, you know, if you look at what it originally looked like. So it's very, so I'm wondering, and also the translation, I have noticed that other people also translate it as like numb or something like numb.
Yeah.
Or but
I would say it's consensus. Okay.
yeah, I find that, I
Let
mean,
me
yeah, I
ask you
wonder
one
about the
question.
consensus. I wonder about it if people are just copying each other, because that translation of song as a numb,
So,
or
Darren,
as,
let me ask
yeah.
you one question. Do you know the words 爽约? What does that mean?
I don't, my Mandarin sucks, sorry.
Okay.
Swang.
Somebody speak Cantonese?
You can
No,
write
we
it
just
down.
actually let me give you an English equivalency. You've heard the expression an embarrassment of riches. This is almost a paradoxical or juxtaposed term that we now understand the meaning of clearly, but whoever would be embarrassed by their riches, or how many riches would be heaped upon somebody to the point where it's embarrassing. I think the choice of the word strong here is actually for the same reason, because it invites first understanding of, oh, wait, he's not saying this is great. Because then you start reading it in the context, and it's meant to be sort of a double take. Because otherwise, you from the context of the first and second verse there, these things blind eyes, these things deafen ears, this thing shuang taste. What? Wait, we're not talking about shuang as in, we're meaning it more in the sense of clear. And in that sense, it clears the taste, clears the palate, numbs the palate, actually works
Yeah.
to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just the whole sentence, right? 味令人口爽. So I can't say. I'm not even gonna attempt Mandarin. So it's like 5 flavors cause your mouth to like have no taste or something. Like yeah,
Right.
I guess I could see that. But okay, let me just I had some other points I wanted to make. I'll just make them quickly. So like this chapter concludes by saying, so the last line, 是以聖人為腹不為目. 為腹不為目. So that's why the saints goes for the stomach rather than the eyes. So like that sort of echo, I mean, I wonder if it means the third line could be ambiguous, because going for the stomach is related to, eating and flavors and mouth. So the song could mean like no numbing, but it could just mean it could mean something positive too, because of what it concludes, this chapter concludes. So just a couple of other things. And I think the last week we were talking, or at least at the end, I was saying how if you look at the words pictographically and just imagine how these characters look like, like 2,500 years ago, like what we know of what they look like the pictures themselves could be lending meaning to the reader. And so they would see very clearly a person holding like two things that things that represent flame and fire. So it would seem, I don't know, it seems like it might be suggesting of I don't know, like something like distinctive rather than the opposite, like having nothing. And then I guess the last thing I would say is that it is the word that's being, or the words that are being used together are hao song. So it's not like negative, right? Like the where it does seem to be negative, I'm looking at examples of where it does seem to be used negatively, which is not super common, but where it is used negatively, or where it is, yeah, it's usually related to words like failure or song ye, so 爽约 or something like that. That's like breaking an appointment.
Yes.
Or like but
Means you're
song,
missing something.
yeah, or 不爽, yeah, 不
Yeah, but
爽,
that's the opposite meaning. A lot of Chinese words have the
yeah.
opposite meaning. Okay, so unfortunately, that's the difficult part we need to deal.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in conclusion, I'm just gonna say like it just seems like because of how this whole chapter concludes, why folk but why mo like for the saint goes for the stomach and not for the eyes. It seems like the use of the song, just because this word itself seems like it could carry this ambiguity. Like I think it very clearly carries ambiguity, because it, from my like again cursory research, the dominant under meaning of it does seem to be like something that's clear and crisp and distinguished. And it also looks like that in the character. So given the last line of the chapter, I wonder if it could be suggesting something ambiguous. Anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the ambiguity is very common in this text. Okay, if you start to read the Nietzsche, okay, there's a lot of the texts are very ambiguity. So sometimes that's the philosophical part, if you want to deal with that. So again, our job, Amang and I, we try to truly represent what the text is. Okay, so the interpretation is on yours. So you're welcome to have a different kind of interpretation. Madeline, please.
Yes, right. Thanks. So I'm listening to this discussion and reading it, and it strikes me that this is about the concept or the phenomenon of the reversal. that when you go too far in one direction, it's like a wave reaching its peak, and it comes back down. So it's not bad on the level of personal advice as well as the level of advice to rulers.
That's all you want to say?
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I think I forget this point. Yeah. You see, in a way, Darren also writes on the ambiguity, right? Something wonderful, 5 colors, should be wonderful, but make you blind. 5 tones supposed to be beautiful, but make you deaf, right? And the 5 flavor, you numb, and running on the horse, hunting, supposed to be happy, spiritual, but it will make you crazy. So in a way, running too far, doing too much, it caused the different situation. Yeah. Thank you. Kwang, please.
I will be very brief. I think that once again, like in many stanzas of the Tao Te Ching, is an invitation to moderation. But existentially, the author Laozi made a distinction between the belly, which has a natural capacity to limit itself, and the I, looking for enjoyment, for entertainment, which has much less natural capacity to limit itself. Okay, so it is an invitation once again to the yin side, meaning to the more ordinary side of life, rather than to the shining side of life. I stop here.
Thank you, Kwang. Mark, please.
Yeah. So this is a question mostly for Darren, but so if I'm understanding what he's saying, and I may not be, the first 3 lines are typically kind of interpreted both like linguistically and philosophically as being kind of 3 examples of the same dynamic. But if I'm understanding what Darren is saying, is what he's saying is that the third line is actually contrasting to the first 2.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I noticed about those lines, I'm not sure about that. That doesn't actually, looking at the chapter overall in the context of the Dao Te Ching, that doesn't make sense to me. It seems to me like the 3 lines are in parallel. But looking at the 3 lines, I do notice that when you look at them, one thing that really strikes me is the difference between the second to last character in the third line and the second to last character in the first and second line. Like visually, that's quite a contrast. So I just wanted to point that out. That's it, and make sure that I got Darren correct. That's what he's saying. He's saying that the third line is in contradiction to the first 2, or is like a counterexample. That's it. Thanks.
All right. Thank you,
Yeah.
Mark. Darren, please.
Yeah, say some. And I also noticed some little like cutesy thing I'll just mention, but yeah. So I am saying, like, I think when you read it just straight through, I think they clearly seem to go together. You know, they even sort of have this rhyme and they have this rhythm. But by the time you get to the last line, you realize maybe there's something playful going on, because he says, so the last line says "wai fuk but wai mok." So the saint goes for the, I'm just translating very roughly, goes for the stomach and not for the eyes or whatever, the visual stuff. And so then you might realize that the song, so in the third line, that last word we were talking about, might have the ambiguity of meaning simply because it's referring to, you know, eating and flavors. And so the cute thing I just know, so anyway, this is really just based on like my confusion about how the word song is used, because it's very rarely, at least in my experience, very rarely used as like in a negative sense. It's usually used as a refreshing and crisp and clear sense, especially regarding flavors, but also other things in Cantonese. It's a very common word. So the cutesy thing I want to notice though, so the last line I was referring to, wai fok but wai mo, going for the stomach and not for the eyes. The fok means like the stomach area, but it could also mean the middle. Like it's used when words referring to the middle. And if you look at this, if you look at the previous 5 lines, the song takes place in the middle of the 5 lines. It's in the 3rd line, so it's the middle. So again, I'm just saying the last line might be suggesting something playful going on. I don't know if playfulness is allowed in Taoism, but so the playfulness would exist in the song, could have the ambiguity and meaning, but also folk meaning middle. Going for so the saint goes for the middle and not for the eyes, going for the middle. Well, the middle would be where the song, that line takes place too. So anyway, that's just something. It's probably way over interpretation, but if there's something to it, it could just be a playfulness where the last line sort of slightly shifts your understanding and sense of the previous the chapter you just read, but you won't know this until you get to the last line and focus on the word folk, or however it is pronounced in Mandarin.
All right. Thank you, Darren. Okay, that's appreciate you share your interpretation. But one thing I'd like to have the people who know Chinese, please help me think one thing. Can you find an example of shuang has been used in the ancient time as the same meaning of today use? Okay, so if you can find this one, please let me know. Shuang as today's Shuang in the ancient time, let's say pre-Qin dynasty, pre-Qin period time, or even in the Han time dynasty. If you can find the example, please let me know. I think that would be important to understand. Thank you. Paul, please.
Yeah, just a very quick point that Darren's idea resolves my problem because suddenly the 5, it was like a clever play on, in the case of food, yes, the 5 clear the palate, the 5 are beautiful. That actually resolves what I was finding a little odd, that was saying that's like, oh no, don't do that, just give them rice. So I actually like it, but I don't know if it's true or not, and I know nothing about the Chinese, but it fits, it resolves the dilemma I was bringing up.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Okay, so let's move on. So Darren, you have one more?
Yeah, I'll just make it very quick. We should move on. So I just want to say regarding the origin of the word. So I'll have to do more research, but just what I see right now. So I do have a dictionary that I purchased that gives you the history of these characters and how they evolved. It's like one of my favorite dictionaries. And it does say though, so I lost the page, but it does say that originally it did mean like crisp and clear and all that. And so does seem to be the original meaning. It does seem to be what the picture actually depicts as well. So, but again, obviously it doesn't mean that there wasn't that negative meaning too, but I have to look into it. In fact, this dictionary, which is about the development of these characters, it doesn't even have the negative meaning. Like it says originally it meant a matching pair and bright and clear. So those were the original meanings, a matching pair or bright and clear. So those are both depicted in the picture quite clearly. And then it evolved to mean crisp, and then eventually to invigorating, and eventually to straightforward. So those were the arrows in this dictionary. So anyway, I'll just throw that out there. So I don't even see a negative meaning here.
No, be careful on the dictionary, because right now we are dealing with the text pre-Qin dynasty. Okay, so dictionary, when they talk about much later time, most of them.
No, this dictionary is about the development of the characters, like from their origin, like in ancient China. Yeah. Okay. I can post a picture of the dictionary. I'll post it in the chat.
Okay. All right, thank you. So let's move on. Chapter 13. Who would like to read the? Okay, Kwang, please.
Okay, so translation by Professor Mose Roberts, stanza 13. At favor as disgrace take fright, honors to the self bring woe. Explain, at favor as disgrace take fright. What could be more dire than favor? Its gain or loss betokens danger. Such is the meaning. Explain, honors to the self bring woe. Ourselves are why we suffer harm. Without them, what harm would there be? So to the one who honors self above the world, confide its care. to the one who holds the self more dear than it and trusts its care.
Thank you, Kwang. Deborah, please.
Jason, I apologize for inconveniencing you. For some reason, my system keeps freezing. I'm so sorry you have to keep letting me back in. Can I just take 2 seconds if the group doesn't mind? Because I couldn't raise my hand because my computer froze. I wanted to go back to a comment that Aman made much earlier on in chapter 12, which I really appreciated. And so if
Deborah, can you hold this one? When we finish the chapter 13, then we go back to your comment.
Of course, my
Okay.
apology.
Okay, no problem. Can you want to read the translation or no?
Yes, please.
Okay, please.
Okay, don't jump on me from Stephen Mitchell, but I really, really relate to the way he explains things. Success is as dangerous as failure. Hope is as hollow as fear. What does it mean that success is as dangerous as failure? Whether you go up the ladder or down it, your position is shaky. When you stand with your 2 feet on the ground, you will always keep your balance. What does it mean that hope is as hollow as fear? Hope and fear are both phantoms and arise from thinking of the self. When we don't see the self as self, what do we have to fear? See the world as yourself. Have faith in the way things are. Love the world as yourself. Then you can care for all things. Well, that may seem very mamby-pamby, but I really like it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a beautiful translation, but I just cannot find any match about standing on 2 feet. Okay, so sorry. Okay. Any other one want to read a different translation? Okay, so let me share. Okay.
Chapter 13, Fame and Shame. Fame and shame are like disturbances. Value great calamity as you value your body. What is the meaning of fame and shame are like disturbances? Fame should be treated as inferior. It is like a disturbance when you gain it. It is like a disturbance when you lose it. That is called fame and shame are like disturbances. What is the meaning of value great calamity as you value your body? The reason we experience great calamity is that we have our bodies. If we have no bodies, how can we experience any calamity? Therefore, valuing your body as the political world, in this way, the world can rest on you. Caring for your body as the political world, in this way, the world can depend on you.
Thank you, Amam. When I think this one always, I don't know anyone find the difficulty on this one. I do find this one is very difficult to make sense on this one. What's the key message here? So that's, of course, that's my second time doing the translation. So if you were here last time, I mean, 2 years ago, this translation could be totally different than the previous one. Let me explain. Here, I figure out how to make sense on this one. Here, in the ancient Chinese philosophy, one important subject is name and actuality. Chinese call 名实. Okay, that run over all philosophies. Just like in Greek tradition, start from Aristotle and Plato, we talk about what's attribute, what's substance. Okay, so here, I think here is talking about fame and shame are like disturbance. Here, fame and shame are the name. Okay, Taoism is very neglect the meaning of name. Confucius will say refutation of name. The name is very important, but Taoism just opposite. Name is not important at all. So that's why I explain what's the meaning of fame and shame are like disturbance. Differences I transferred as 弱精, like small thing, not a big thing. Okay, so fame should be treated inferior. Where here he talk about fame, it means name. Okay, is inferior. It's not that important. It's just like a disturbance. When you get gain it, you get fame, or you lose the fame, which means shame. It's just disturbance. It's not important. Just like a disturbance. What is important? The calamity as your body, because the calamity, or sometimes you call it, before I translate as misfortune, okay, but something bad, danger, okay, happen to you because something bad happened. For example, you got sick, okay. So this kind of thing on your body. Remember, I think the whole Dao De Jing will look at your body, physical body. This one is very important thing, okay. So they see so you should focus on the calamity, okay, the disaster happen on your body, not the name on your body. So which is take the name and the actuality. Actuality is your body. Name is your fame. So this one, two things. Name is not important. The body is important. Then to the last, that makes sense in the last sentence, last conclusion, right? So you should value your body, okay, as the world. Right now, he's talking to the ruler, okay? Treat the world just like you value your body, okay? So in this world can rely on you. You should love the world, just love your body, or care for the world, just like care your body. Or you care your body as you care the world, basically equally. Then the world can depend on you. So tied to your physical corporeal body with the world. I think that's the essence of this chapter, and also represent the political theory of the Dao De Jing's teaching. I think most of the translation interpreter kind of see like forget of yourself, become selfless. That I don't think that's that's the way of doing this, especially in this chapter. So that's the way I try to interpret on this one. So I see Amang, you have anything to say?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time with the last chapter, but honestly, I find this one to be a much greater challenge. Like Jason said, it is very different from the last time we translated. I do like our translation this time better. I agree. We had to do this again after I go back and look because we got better. But understanding the lesson here, that's the challenge. So let me invite you to do it from the opposite direction. Value great calamity as you would value your body. Okay, what if you devalue great calamity? It's no damn big deal. You treat a major calamity, whether it be upon your person or upon your entire civilization or political sphere, as nothing big. How do you trust somebody with leadership who treats calamity that way? So if they treat it in a serious way, then the world can rest on you. Fame and shame are like disturbances. Treat fame as inferior. What if you do this the opposite way? What if you treat fame as supreme? It is the most important thing. Well, what good is that? Then your every move is scrutinized.
Action will be questioned and observed, and at some point, can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, my headphones clicked out. So at some point, fame is going to be a problem for you. if you treat it as a supreme good. Gaining it, you will be on a razor's edge all the time to maintain it. And when you lose it, inevitably, you will also experience great calamity. But what if you don't give a damn? What if you just do not care? You don't play that game. You got your 15 minutes of fame because of something you said that went viral, and people keep asking you about it. Well, okay, that happened, but I have no further comment. I'm not going to go and, become the next hot tui girl. You can just dismiss it as an inferior good, inferior to valuing your actual physical self and valuing real issues in the world around you as you would value your actual physical self. And if that means you sometimes have to be infamous or, mired in shame, so be it. That's how I understand this chapter. And it is a challenging one, but I think it can be sussed out to make a lot more sense.
Thank you, Amam. Okay, so that's one thing I think is key things. I hope I can translate better. Is on this slide. If we have no bodies, how can we experience calamity? Okay, so two ways you can think about this, right? Very typical is Buddhism way of thinking about. So ignore your body. If I have no body, selfless, then how can I receive calamity? Okay, that's one way to think about it. But another way to talk about is your body is so important. That's why you will have calamity. Therefore, you need to be focused on your body. I think that's a two way of thinking about this one. And then what I try to focus is on the later. So body is important. So I think that's one thing I like to focus on. Yeah. Anyway, we have Mark, Kwang, and Nick. Mark, please.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. So I have two questions about this. First, for the translators, I'm really interested in the use of the word political twice in the translation, and what's the reasoning behind that? And then the second question is for anybody who's familiar with ancient Chinese philosophy and history, which is probably mostly Quan, but anybody else who knows too. I'm wondering what is known about the relationship between Lao Tzu and Yang Zhu. Do we know which one came first? Do we have any evidence that either one was aware of the other? I'm wondering that specifically because of the focus on the body here and the value of it, which is a big theme in Yang Zhu. That's it. Thanks.
Okay, so for your second question, I will suggest that don't put too much discussion on that because that's another big subject. Okay, just express your opinion, and I fully understand why Mark asked this question because I think Mark and I probably in the same line to see Yang Zhu's relationship with Laozi. Okay, so but anyway, okay, please, if you want to comment, please briefly on that. Otherwise, it's a very long, difficult discussion. Your first question is about political world. Yeah, I have to talk about here. You see, 天下, 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 天下. Okay, 4 times. Okay, so under the heaven. Okay, so I decide even it's not perfect. I hope I can do better because they have the 天下. I translate as political world, or sometimes I just translate as world. Sometimes they call it 天地, heaven and earth. I translate as the nature world. Sometimes I use the word the nature. So none of these are perfect, and they always have a problem. That's why I have to put a parenthesis here as a political word to avoid you think about as a nature word. That's the reason. Yeah, thank you. Kwang, please.
What I want to say about this one, first, the title, Chong Ru. I think that fame and shame is okay, but I would have preferred favor and disgrace. But
Favor and disgrace. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
but
Okay.
let's debate.
Just a little bit. Yeah. Just a little bit arduous. Okay. I think the favor and the disgrace. You are taking as a different point of view, right? I take it as a receiver. Okay. You take in position as a giving, right? You give favor. You disgrace somebody. I'm taking the view of the receiver. I receive fame. I receive shame. Okay. I think that's the same meaning on the two sides. Okay. Just
I understood perfectly what you just said, but I would like to say that I beg to differ because
please.
you can receive favor and you can receive disgrace. But I would say here that it's not that important than that. But that being said, what I really want to say that there's a deep link with the stanza 12, okay? Because in stanza 12, it was an invitation to favor the belly compared to the eye because the belly has a natural limit. And here, it is an invitation to favor the physical body because the first meaning of sheng is really physical body, rather than the honors and the fame, because what is basic is the body. And once again, it invites to a certain kind of mentality, okay? In the sense that I often say that Confucianism is an imperial doctrine for glory and greatness, and Taoism is an invitation to the joy of what is natural. Okay, we can discuss to the end of the world is greatness and glory are natural or not. But once again, the yin side of the mountain receiving less light, and the yang side of the mountain receiving a lot of light. It is. I think that is the best explanation, and we stanza after stanza in the Tao Te Ching, we have all kind of advice to moderation and to favor the side of the mountain receiving the less light. I want to say that it's a choice, okay? It gives rise to a certain mentality, but it's absolutely okay. It's not mine, but that is absolutely okay. And just a little bit of provocation, I want to read a paragraph contrasting that to what is the standpoint of Confucianism. It won't be long. It's only 10 lines. This stanza should also be read in connection with the Confucian concept of xiu sheng, self-cultivation or self-enhancement, and the sheng is the same sheng than in this stanza. An ongoing developmental process of learning, reflection, and moral discipline for the Confucian elite, whether in or out of office. In turn, the Confucian seeks to develop the king's persona so that the king can not only recognize and attract accomplished scholars who will serve him well, but also emanate virtue so that the population and his subordinates can be disciplined with a minimum of punitive measure. The wise ruler does not exchange his personal integrity for favor or disgrace. Thus, this stanza extends stanza 12 theme of choosing the belly over the eye. Whoever can reject the eye can be entrusted with the world because he is able to resist external attractions, which otherwise would subvert his mind or destroy his concentration. So here, paradoxically, the Confucianist doctrine, who is inviting to greatness and glory, at the same time would invite to favor the belly over the eye, because with the belly you would not be disturbed by the phenomenal attractions of the outer world. But here it is a second reading on being concentrated on your inner self, so it's not so your organs of the sense would not be distracted by the fun of the outer life. I stop here.
All right. Thank you, Kwang. Okay, so I think probably you can see, for most of the people, you can see there's a two. Actually, there's many ways to understand Dao De Jing. Okay, so you can see that in line with Confucius teaching, or you can see just opposite to the Confucius teaching. So that's your choice. Okay, so that's why I said I believe reading Confucius analect is important to understand Dao De Jing. Doesn't mean they are talking about the same thing. They could talk about totally opposite thing. But anyway, both are very important. That's what I'd like to make. First point I want to make. Second point I want to make is I do find out Tao Te Ching or even Zhuangzi, another Taoist text, they very focus on the physical body. So you will see how many sun, which is body here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that's 6 times. Only this, I don't know how many character they talk about body 6 times. So that means it's important. Anyway, we have a Nick. Nick, please.
Yeah, thanks. My comment is on this keyword body. And earlier you formulated 2 ways of translating
Yeah.
the body versus calamity, but you took one. So, and the scholars have pointed out the very close connection of this chapter with the chapter 44, which we read a few months ago.
Yes.
Which also talk about importance of valuing your body, be taking care of
Body,
your
right.
body.
Yeah.
So and obviously the concluding sentence of chapter 13 points to the importance of valuing taking care of one's own body. So in that sense, yeah, just wondering why you took one of the 2 formulations and translate the relationship of body and the calamity the way you did, which seems to contradict the consensus scholarly interpretation.
Excuse me, Nick, which line you talking about? Nick.
Yeah, so this would be the second line. Value great calamity as you value your body.
Value the calamity as you value your body. Okay. 贵大患若身. Okay, so I try to word translation. You value your the greater as you value your body. And what's your point? I didn't get it. So sorry, I didn't get it.
Okay, so the scholarly consensus says that actually the sentence should be, it's constructed in reverse. You should say 贵身弱
Okay,
大患.
I got your point. I got your point. Yeah. I don't see that's a consensus. Okay, because I think that's a Buddhism interpretation. Okay, because if you reverse the total meaning change, that means your body is not important. Okay, and if you have no body, how can you receive calamity? Okay, so I think that's a Buddhism translation and the interpretation, and then which I disagree. Okay, that's my point. So of course there's no way to say I'm much better than other people, so you have to listen to me. No, I didn't say that. I just say I stick with my interpretation because and back to Mark's comment about Yang Zhu. So all the line I read Yang Zhu, I read the Dao De Jing, I read the Zhuangzi, I draw the conclusion. Body is the most important thing. Okay, there's nothing like selfless and I don't care, I have no body. I don't think that's the way to interpret. Okay.
Well,
So I
if I
hope
may
I
just add one last comment, I don't mean to bring any other schools of philosophy, just a literal meaning here. The way you translate as if we value the great calamity, but if you reverse the order of the construction, what it literally means is that we should value our body by paying attention to the possibilities of great calamity.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you, but I'm not sure. At least the text I see is this way, and I have to choose one, so I cannot try to work on all the possibility and of the world. Yes, there's just like you mentioned about previous one, right? The far, this word, the far. Should take it out. Yeah, I think later on we will see more and more things like this. And then I'm not doing enough work to check all different kind of version. That's I have to admit, because I'm not that interested in that. I'm more interested in the philosophical meaning. So yeah, but anyway, thank you for bringing up all this kind of issue. Which
Can I make one point for this translation of value great calamity as you value your body? And I'm going to point to Chuang-Tzu here. I was looking it up because I knew there was something that resonated with me. Anecdote from chapter 28 in the Chuang-Tzu says, Yao resigned the emperor to Su Yu. Su Yu refused it. Next, he resigned it to Su Chou, Chifu. It might not be a bad idea to make me son of heaven, said Su Chu Chifu. However, at the moment, I'm worried about a serious ailment. I'm going to put it right, and I haven't time just now to put the empire right. The empire is the most important thing of all, but he would not harm his life for the sake of it, and how much less for anything else. This is an example of where the Taoists disagree with the Confucians about what you need to place your attention, time, and focus on. And it kind of ties into that idea of your own oxygen mask before anyone else's. So do treat your own calamities first and foremost, or you can be no good for anything else.
Thank you, Amam. Okay, so Deborah, please.
Yes, I'm on. So I just want to say that when I share, in the years that I've been studying and doing my best to utilize in my being, in my life, the Dao De Jing, it's very much from a lay person. It's not from being, and I'm a psychotherapist by profession, it just so happens. It's not for me so much and I say this with complete respect, it's not so much the intellectual. For me, why it's been such a beautiful gift in my life is because the translations for me, quote unquote, are for the practical, in the here and now, in my life in presence. So I just want to be really clear about that. So I really have appreciated what Iman has said. And also, when I read this, if you could put it back, Jason, when I read this, quote unquote, my interpretation, if you will, and boy, oh boy, I'm using those words very, very lightly. What is the meaning of fame and shame are like disturbances? Fame should be treated as inferior. So going back to that little teeny piece in 12, to me, this married with it, and it relates to a comment that Iman had made. So for me, I don't know that fame needs to be inferior as long as I am able to keep myself in check with it. And obviously, I'm not talking about my personal self. And then also at the bottom, I love in the bottom, therefore, valuing your body in this way, the world can rest on you. Caring for your body in this way, the world can depend on you. So for me, in all the years that I've been studying this, it's about how I am caring for self in relationship to others, in relationship to having beautiful, healthy relationships, and not getting so, if you will, self-centered, self-oriented, that it ends up isolating me from the other. And so that's how I'm reading 12, and that's also how I'm reading 13, that it always comes back to the relationship for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you for sharing. Okay. Kevin, please.
Yes, thank you. I would follow the Deborah first. If you plus other, that's the 天下 world. If from that that's angle. The second point is regarding to I going to use another interpretation about the middle one. It's 无所以有大化者，唯无有生。既无无生，无有何化。Basically, it's about yourself and the ourself with the calamity, right? Like calamity. If you know, my interpretation is here. If nobody, you don't consider you have a body, it's no calamity. So that's like a little bit kind of Buddhism, the way you think about this. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why my translation is quite of opposite than that. Okay, so
yeah.
I see the body. So, but we all disagree. We all agree on this kind of disagreement. I think that's the only.
Yeah, that's beautiful about it. You got a different kind of taste, yes. Right? About last of the two Chinese character, I would say is for the rulers. It's similar to Deborah mentioned that. You want to be consider yourself with the world. It can give you a word to rule. That's for governor. That's if you love yourself like the world. That's the meaning you, as a ruler. If a king or president, you like the whole country, other people like yourself. Yeah, you are a good president and a ruler. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah. So again, I just want to say I try to distance from the Buddhism interpretation, but not because I don't like Buddhism. In other way, I like Buddhism a lot. But the situation is, as a translator, I should not insert the Buddhism concept here. So as a reader, you are welcome to insert any kind of philosophy. Okay, here. So that's my point. Paul, please.
Yeah, I want to focus again on the word value. And I think it's good to talk about how the English comes across to each of us. Because when I hear value, I might think something different from that English word than you guys. But when I hear value, and I hear value great calamity, I want to say, thank you, calamity. Like it's a good thing calamity happened. Just like with my body, I say, good body, valuable, thank you, body. And since I'm not sure if that's what you meant, though, because I almost want to read this as take calamity as seriously as you take your body, which is a different word than value. So I wanted your thoughts on that.
Yeah, thank you for pointing out. Okay, yeah, actually the Chinese reading also have the same kind of feeling on that. Okay, because if you read the Chinese, 贵大患若身, it's also said just like when you read in English. Okay, you value. Okay, thank you the great calamity. Okay, they have this kind of meaning even read in Chinese. So That's why I find out this the translation on this one is very difficult because the Chinese also read this way. But I kind of in a way I want to be loyal to the original text. In another way, I want to make sense for the entire paragraph. So I just think that's probably the only choice I can make. But anyway, welcome any kind of comment on that. Yeah. Darren, please.
Okay. I just have a kind of elementary question regarding the interpretation.
Okay.
Maybe this is very basic. I don't know. I'm just having trouble with the last two, like in your translation, the last two paragraphs here. And I think your translation's pretty good. I compared it with other ones, including Derek Lynn's, which is the one I generally prefer, but like I think yours is actually better than all of them. So
Thank you for saying that. Yeah.
It's very it's very it's very to
I
the
would say I cannot say I'm the best, but we are the best. But we will say we are the most close to the original text.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. You're closest to the text, which I value. And I think that's good because it means it doesn't have an interpretation embedded in, which can be troubling if you read the Chinese. So the last two, the last two paragraphs in your translation, what is the meaning? Okay, value great calamity as you value your body. The reason we experience great calamity is that we have our bodies. If we have no bodies, how can we experience any calamity? Okay, that's good. But then okay, I'm trying to like square that with the last paragraph. So therefore, value your body as the world. In this way, the world can rest on you. So it's saying like why. So the previous paragraph is like is suggesting like we have no something along the lines if we have no bodies.
No,
but then,
no, that's
what it's saying. Maybe this is a very basic thing. I'm just confused with. Could you explain like how this?
Okay. So that's I
squares?
try to make it clear because just try to answer Paul's question on that. So value great community as you value your body. So the way to see it is your body is so important. That's why calamity is important. Therefore, you should value your own body so the world can rely on you. So you should care for your body so the world can depend on you. So if you do the Buddhism reading, they were totally wrong, right? Value greater community as you value about. So if you are Buddhism, they will say, okay, I have no body, so I have no calamity. I think that's all Buddhism influence. So okay, so I don't think the ancient Chinese time, they have the concept of nobody. Okay, let's put it this way. Okay, they are very, very body centric. Okay.
Oh, okay. I'm totally seeing this. Okay, it's like
I'm
totally seeing this through a slightly different lens now. All right, that's so interesting.
Okay, thank you to bring up. It's very difficult, and then It's so okay. Again, you can say they are the same as Buddhism, or you say Buddhism is better.
Yeah,
that's all
it's
fine.
fascinating.
Okay,
yeah,
so
because the text
sort of
the text sort of lends both. Because you just have to shift your perspective slightly, and it means like then it suddenly means the opposite.
That's right. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So like this one, if we have no body, how can experience calamity, right? So you can say, I have no body, so I have no calamity. Another way to think about is because I have a body, because my body is so important. That's why I have a calamity. What should I do? Not forget I forget my body. I should take care of my body. Body is the most important thing. Okay. I think that's another way to look at. So
can I just say one more thing just regarding this interpreting this? I guess like the way one might be misled into a Buddhist interpretation is that second paragraph in your translation, because it's like suggesting the idea that fame and shame, are sort of not important. They're just like disturbances, so you might as well not have them. So then when you get to the third paragraph, you're like, oh, okay, but great calamities, okay, well, these are just sort of illusions as well, so we can just get rid of that. So it's sort of the second paragraph sort of lends you into a sort of Buddhist interpretation of the third paragraph. And so I guess that's where like it seems like there might be conflicting like impulses in this chapter, but I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I just have to honor how does the text. So you know Chinese, you can compare word to pro. I'm pretty consistent with
Yeah,
the
no,
word.
your
Whenever
translation
you
is
see
great.
value, you can find 贵, okay? When you see body, you can find 身. You see word or political word, you can find 天下 under the word. So I try to do this way. So that's why, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, sorry, just 10 seconds. Sorry, I just saw Amon's comment, but it's speaking to Confucians, not to Buddhists. So, like this also makes me think like maybe I'll just make a suggestion here to also read chapter 13 in the context of the previous and following few chapters, where if you do that in this even larger context, I feel my sense is that it pushes towards a more Buddhist, what I'm calling it quote unquote Buddhist interpretation rather than the other one.
yeah,
So, but anyway, I'm just saying so it depends on how broadly you want to look at the context and also how you interpret everything. So
yeah, that's nature for the later when Buddhism transferred to China. People will say, that's exactly what Laozi talking about, right? So it's no surprise you have this feeling. I just don't want to make the translation this way. That's it.
My teacher often likes to say, it took about 300 years for Taoists to realize that Buddhists weren't just foreign Taoists. Something else was actually going on there. But yeah, it is on a spectrum. It is worth remembering, time and place. This isn't communicating to Buddhists or from Buddhists in any way. They weren't there. The discourse that it's engaging in is discourse with the Ru scholars, the Confucian elites who were prominent.
All right, thank you. So I don't think we have time to go next chapter, but that's a wonderful discussion. Thank you very much. And let's continue. Kwang, please.
Yes, I agree that here the Buddhists are not involved at all. And I would like to read the last 5 lines of the translation by Professor Moss Roberts because I think his translation is crystal clear. So, to the one who honors self above the world, confide its care, meaning confide the care of the world to that one. To the one who holds the self more dear than the world, entrust the care of the world to that one. Okay, in the sense that it's a very common sense understanding that that there are people who would be ready to do a lot of things, even to harm their integrity or their physical health for a gain, okay, either a material gain or a position at court. And it shows that that person doesn't have a right hierarchy in his mind, in the sense that, because if you remember, there's a chapter in the Chuangzi about a man who is very ugly, but somehow he is capable to attract the admiration of the other people, and even the king offered him a position of prime minister, and the king was afraid that he would refuse because the king was
Even a
so
lot of beautiful women ask their mother to marry him, marry her.
Exactly, because, and it is precisely referring to that kind of integrity, okay, that the person has a deep understanding that what is important, and he would not make a transaction of his most precious treasure, his psychological integrity and his physical integrity, in exchange for gain, profits, or for a position in society. Okay, because I would like to remind that the title of the stanza is Chong Ru, that we can translate as fame or shame, or favor or disgrace. In the sense that if you are running after favor, you risk disgrace, and you are forgetting what is the most fundamental, your physical integrity and your emotional integrity. So it's more a common sense advice than an invitation to self-sacrifice. But the paradox here is that the person that is capable of protecting what is the most fundamental for him, it's to that kind of person that you should entrust the stewardship of the word, because he knows what is important. I stop here.
Yeah, thank you for the explanation. Yes, and personally, I agree. Yeah. Mark, please.
It's a fascinating chapter, and I have two quick questions about it. One is more general. Why does the Tao Te Ching find it necessary to explain itself here? I'm not sure if this is the first place where this happened or not. Where it says, it makes a statement and it says, what do I mean by this statement? What does this statement mean? Why does it find a need to explain itself in this way? The other question is about the meaning of the word calamities.
Yeah.
Because I think the third to last line, I don't remember how you translated it. There's a relationship between, first there's a relationship above between, as you say, calamity and your body.
Mm-hmm.
Value great calamity as you value your body. But I think in the conclusion, when it says, therefore value your body as the world, I think it's completing the equation that the calamity is actually the world as a whole. And that's what you're accepting. When you're accepting your body, you're accepting the world as a whole. First, there's a relationship between calamity and the body, then it becomes between the body and the world. So I think that the calamity might be the world as a whole.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Let me respond to your second question, second comment. Okay. I think that's a wonderful comment. Let's put it this way. Okay. So that's another way to look at this one. Then it's also tied to the tied to the translation about why do I translate as calamity, right? Chinese word called 大患. Okay. So calamity may not be the right words among you. Probably want to help me think about, or anybody help me think about this. Okay, the word 患 actually means, before I translate as misfortune, okay, I kind of feel like it may have the meaning of luck, unluck, okay, lucky, not lucky, this kind of concept here. That's why I changed to calamity. But another word is using trouble, the great trouble, okay? So in this sense, right, if you see the word as trouble, or you have some worry, okay, probably worry is another way to translate if you consider the great worry as your body, okay? So you easily can tie the worry as your body, this word. So I take care of my body. So, and I will same way I take care of the something I worry, which is the word. Okay. That's another way. So I have to admit, okay, I probably calamity, probably not the right word, or we should choose a better word.
I do like calamity because it has both sort of a existential meaning, but also a very internal meaning. And yeah, Huan does mean to suffer from illness or to contract a disease. And we would see those as the greatest of misfortunes, the calamitous. I liked calamity because I do think that it captures that meaning really well, especially when you're talking about in and of a person's body. Anyone who's dealt with any kind of chronic illness has known how calamitous it is. It's not a perfect word. I do like it better than misfortune because that sort of evokes images of tarot readings and yarrow sticks and things that this doesn't actually mean. Yeah, maybe there's a better word choice out there, but it is meant to be both evocative of the world and evocative of the self. Life is a fatal pursuit. The political world is a fatal pursuit to some degree. You will not triumph indefinitely. And I do think that that may be part of the meaning here as well.
Yeah, thank you, Amam. Okay, let's get back to Mark, the first question. Okay, does this text explain itself, right? It seemed a little bit lousy, okay, talking about two things, then what is the meaning of something? Then you talk about what is the meaning of this one? It's, I think I saw, I cannot recall which chapter. There's another chapter doing this way. And then I think that sometimes it's a little bit odd if you, a college student, write an essay and you do this one, you talk about something and they say, what is the opinion of this one? And then explain that that's the meaning of this one. It sounds very elementary writing. But sometimes you have to forgive for the writing because Chinese, ancient Chinese, they lack of like a Western logic kind of thing. Not only Chinese lack of that, even pre-Aristotle, that you can see Socrates dialogue. Sometimes very lengthy, right? Because they don't have the clear tool to write clear. I think that's the reason. So that's just my comment. So, and the text doing this way, I have to translate this way. That's Madeline, please.
Yes, thanks so much, both of you, and everyone who's speaking. This is great. I am actually wondering about the word that gets translated as disturbance.
Okay, yeah, right.
I was just looking around in online for the root word of disturbance. Apparently, turbo is a Latin word meaning spinning top.
Mm-hmm.
Like a child's toy, spinning top. So I guess it would be disturboed would mean it got knocked over, I suppose, or out of sync. And I'm wondering about the meaning of the Chinese word.
Okay, Chinese words Jing. If you see, they have a horse on that. Okay, okay. So they have a horse on that. I cannot enlarge. Okay, so if you see they have a horse underneath. Okay, so it's related to when you write in a horse got the disturbance. That's what I think, and it's not a big deal. Let's put this one. Okay, I think that means it's something happened, but it will be gone. Okay, later. So that's why I choose the word disturbance. Okay, so if you, I hope I answer your question, Madeline. So.
Okay, thanks. So it might be like a horse shying away from something, or
I think it's related and put in the context. I think they try to say fame and shame if it's not that important. This something happened, come and go. I think that's what.
It's like a horse startling
Yeah.
or getting spooked.
well, that's interesting because in many cultures there's a an ongoing analogy between horses and the human body, one's own body.
The etymology here is actually of the words Jing and Ma, which Jing means to revere, and it's a little bit of a complicated character. Ma is horse, and so ironically, you revere this animal that you're grooming, petting, but then it startles and the whole thing goes catawampus. That's kind of the image it evokes.
Aha. Thank you.
Anyway, thank you. So okay, so let me, since we have no hands up, so we will stop our formal discussion here. Thank you, and then